What's going on, everybody? It's Omar here. 10 years in the solar industry in the state of New Jersey. I have worked in other states, but in this video, I wanted to take you specifically through what the difference is between staying with PSEG, a major utility company in the state of New Jersey, versus having going with solar. So the difference is just going to make sense over time because a lot of people they don't actually just see the savings. They just want to keep doing what they're doing, and most people move after 5 to 7 years when the next person moves in and they just think that's the way, that's how expensive electricity is supposed to be. So I just want to paint the broad big picture for most people just so that you can see what the difference is. And the product, or the solar product I'll be focusing on right now, is a straight and forward, easy to understand power purchase agreement where basically you just purchase your electricity from the solar panels at a much cheaper rate, much cheaper than if you were just getting it from the utility company. So we're focusing on PSENG right now. And right now, the rates for the utility companies is around 29 cents. Meaning, if you take everything that you paid for your electricity for 1 month and divided it by your kilowatt hours, you'd get a decimal number, right? So around the summertime, April time, it can vary slightly, but it's basically the same, uh, more or less. So we're looking at around 29 cents for your electricity from PSEG. And right now, you can get your electricity for around 16 cents. Right? I don't know how these numbers are gonna. Well, you can get your electricity for 16 cents if you get it from the solar panels, because with solar you don't have to calculate the transmission, the distribution, all the factors that it takes to actually get the electricity to you. Right? It's just gonna come to the sun. So if you can get your electricity at 16 cents installed by us, right? Let's see how those numbers will pay out. And we're gonna use an average electric bill of around 650 kilowatt hours. A lot of people use a lot different numbers, more or less, but we're just going to go with an average here. So if you're with PSENG getting your electricity at 29 cents a kilowatt hour, and you're at 16, and we're getting it to you at 16 cents per kilowatt hour, we're just going to make a couple assumptions here. And that's that the utility company is increasing their rates at around 4% a year. Now, over the last few years, it has gone up more significantly. Like, I think 2 years ago, it went up like 17%. PSEG, JCPL, and Atlantic City Electric. So really high. So if you wanted to just be more aggressive with these numbers, you could put 7%. But I'm just going to be conservative and leave it at 4%, right? So the difference in terms of your raw rate is going to be 29 cents down to 16 cents. Now that gives you a cost per kilowatt hour savings of 13 cents. Now the first thing that most people are going to say is 13 cents does not sound like a lot, right? So what you need to do is you need to multiply this times the kilowatt hours you use over the course of the year. So if somebody's averaging 650 kilowatt hours times 12, right? Basically, your electric bill is going to go from 189, right, what you're averaging, down to $99, right? So there you can see the savings, anywhere from 40 to 50%. Each house is a little bit different, but that's more or less what the savings is going to be on the first year you go solar, 189 down to $99. That's what that 10 cent savings looks like. Now that's just the cherry on top. That's what, like, okay, I'm going solar. I can see some immediate savings and maybe take the edge off of these really expensive bills. But what happens is over time, as your solar rate is locked in at say 0%, right? Obviously, we're going to try to lock in your rate at 0%. But over time, let's look at year 10, right? If you stay with PSEG in year 10, these average electric bills are going to be $268 a month on average versus staying at your $99 with PSEG. Now, again, a lot of people don't notice it's creeping up. I always use the analogy of the frog boiling water, right? He doesn't notice the temperature increasing. And homeowners, it's the same. Most homeowners move like every 5 to 7 years. So if you move out and the next person moves in, they're just going to say, okay, this is what the electric bill is. We just need to pay it. Where if they had gotten solar, right, 10 years ago or 7 years ago, that bill would have still been locked in at $99, which is a blessing for whoever is going to live inside the house. That's why it's, I think, like more of like a selfless act to go solar, even if you think you're going to be moving in 2 or 3 years, because you're locking in the cost of that electricity for that household. Okay. And then this is year 25. This is where you see the numbers really start to get big and different, and you think like I'm lying here, but again, I don't think anybody thought that 10 years ago today that their electric bills would be $189 going to $200 a month on average. If you ask someone who's been in their house 10, 15, 20 years ago, you ask them, what were you paying 10, 15 years ago? They'll be like, my bill was under $100 consistently. So that's the type of price increase that you can see over time. All right. But that's basically it, guys. If you do the total 25-year savings, you're looking at roughly $64,563, assuming the utility company just goes up average 4% a year. If you want to be more aggressive, you're looking at over $100,000 in savings if the utility rates keep going up. And I would actually lean more towards the fact that because of the economy, war, the cost of energy in general is getting more expensive, right? So you could say, 7% will be really hard to maintain going forward. I think the utility companies are going to find in a year or two, they need to raise it up again like they did 2 years ago, right? So 10, 50% rate increases are going to become the norm. And if we were to put this on a visual, right, your monthly payment, if it stays in solar, that $99, right, solar will just keep going up like this. So the gap between what you're paying for solar and what you're paying if you stay with the utility company, that gap just keeps getting bigger and bigger. The total cost chart looks the same, right? But as you pay monthly, the total cost goes up like in a straight line. But there's a gap there. And again, the savings gap, again, that gap just keeps getting bigger and bigger. All right, guys, so I'm going to leave a link down in the description below. If you wanted to just see what your savings looks like for your specific situation, every house is different because every house gets a different amount of sun. The pitch is different things to consider, right? And we're assuming that this day and age, we're able to cover the majority of the electricity. Some people use a lot of electricity, so maybe we can't cover all the electricity with solar. But let's just say we're able to get you down to 50% coverage, right? That's still a lot of savings, and that's still having control or locking in half of your electric bill, as opposed to just having all of your electricity um, being increased in rates by the utility company. All right, guys, and I think 16 cents will be very easy to get for most people at this point in time. Uh, if June comes along and later on in the year, the laws change around solar, it might be hard to get people at lower rates, right? Like maybe the solar will come in at 18 cents or so, but that's still going to be much lower than what the utility is charging with their 29 cents on average. All right, guys, if you like this video, hit the like button. That helps get the word out about solar and these type of programs. A lot of people just don't even know these programs exist. They can just go say they could save without having to pay anything to actually go solar. All right, guys, I'll see you in the next video. Peace.